You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Allan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we are on location at the 2019 Depth of Field Wedding, Portrait, and Event Photography Conference, sponsored, of course, by B&H Photo. Today's episode, we're going to be having a one-to-one chat with the legendary Sir Albert Watson and talk about his amazing career and the work that he does. In upcoming episodes, we're going to be talking with other photographers who spoke here at the conference. But for now, the keynote speaker at the 2019 Depth of Field Conference is none other than Albert Watson. Universally known for his fashion, celebrity, and art photography, Watson has shot over 100 Vogue covers and 40 covers of Rolling Stone. As for celebrities, Watson has probably photographed more famous people than the security cameras at 20th Century Fox. Notables he's photographed include Steve Jobs, Alfred Hitchcock, David Bowie, a nude Kate Moss, and a properly clothed Queen Elizabeth, who bestowed Watson with an Order of the British Empire, the OBE, back in 2015 for services to photography. Watson has photographed ad campaigns for Prada, Chanel, Revlon, and Levi's, and he's directed over 100 TV commercials. Watson has been the recipient of a Lucy Award, a Grammy, the Hasselblad Masters Award, 3 Andes, and as a capstone to his illustrious career, he's agreed to join us today on the B&H Photography Podcast. Welcome, sir. Pleasure to have you here.
Happy to be here.
That's great.
Thanks.
We were listening to your talk just previous, and you hit a lot of points that are really interesting. You talk about the fact that you like maintaining eye contact with your subject when you're photographing them. You don't like looking through a viewfinder. You'd rather have the contact like we're having here right now. Back in the day of film, and when you shot film for 50-something years, and that was your medium, you'd probably shoot a few Polaroids, show it to whoever you're doing, and you would go from there and not really know what you have until the next day or whatever it was. Now you have the camera, you're able to maintain your direct contact, you have a little EVF to look at, and then you have a larger screen that you can call the person over and talk about, here's what we have, and you're actually seeing what used to be Polaroids up front now throughout the entire process. Has that helped you at all or improved the communication? Do you think that your pictures maybe have advanced because you have this instantaneity?
No, I actually prefer it before.
Really?
I prefer it before because now you tend to have hairdressers, makeup artists, the editor. Everybody's looking at that screen,
right? At
the images, and pretty much nowadays I'm very much like I'm driving a truck, so I just keep on going. So it doesn't really slow me down, but I actually like the mystery that only I really knew what was going on when I hit the camera. The shutter.
Right.
So only I really knew what I was getting. And for sure, people would see the odd Polaroid, so they have a rough idea. But I kind of like the mystery of the photographer holding on to it, rather than getting 27 opinions as the shooting is moving along.
I get that. Okay. Too many. The chefs are all in there in the kitchen with you at that point.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you're on set like that, who do you consider collaborators? Are models your collaborators, or are you working kind of solo?
I would say the photographer has to be really in charge. I mean, he's really like a director on a film set. I mean, you need one person there in charge, and he should really be the driving force of the whole event. And you shouldn't. Once in a while, I involve a subject with a video screen, if I feel that I should. But a lot of times I have them shut down the screen when the person walks off the set so they don't see it. So I prefer the old-fashioned mystery of a photography happening inside the camera until a later date, as opposed to like sharing the whole thing.
So you probably get the concept of Leica coming out with a camera without an LCD on the back and it's digital, so you still have to go back to the studio to find out what you got.
Yes. Yeah, but I think you should never be thinking... I think I mentioned during the talk that on a Monday you can be doing the Sistine Chapel. Tuesday it's not quite as good as you remembered it, and on Wednesday you throw it out. And as a photographer, you want to eliminate that. So you want to be pretty sure that if you're doing a Sistine Chapel on the Monday, that it looks just as good on Tuesday and just as good on Wednesday. And I think that's one thing that you have to straighten out. However you straighten it out, whether it's technically, you straighten it out, because sometimes your pictures lacked a technical finesse. And that's something that you can do something about, that you can make your pictures stronger. The technical side of things, I think, is something that you want to try and get out of the way as early on as possible in your career. You shouldn't be tied to equipment. In other words, if you with someone that, say, has my experience, which is a lot now because I've been doing it for many, many years, that I would like to think if you gave me just a simple old-fashioned camera with a roll of film in it, I would like to think that I could do an interesting picture with that. So the fact that somebody hands you a brand new digital camera that's 150 megapixels or whatever, I think it's, as I said several times in there, you're confronted with a rectangle. And it's what you put in the rectangle that's the important thing.
Yeah.
And how your preparation is for that, and so on. So, yeah, it does make a difference, the digital revolution. But to me, the thing that I really liked about the digital revolution was the computer itself, and that what was possible on the computer. And how to, I had a great advantage when I moved on to the computer because I came from an analog background. Mm-hmm. It's 40 years in a darkroom printing silver prints. Yeah. So therefore, that gives you a tremendous advantage when you move onto a screen, and when you make prints. I would like to say that the prints I do now are a product of all these years in a darkroom, yet I'm making them through a computer. So that aspect of digital I like the computer.
Can I ask about the process you just mentioned? And is the reverse ever true, where you'll take an image and you don't think of much of it, but then you look back at it a day, several days, a month later, and you realize, wow, that was the shot, and perhaps even after the edit has been done?
Sometimes there's a shot that slips by, and I even forget it. In fact, recently somebody sent a shot I had done of just a screen grab of a David Bowie shot. And it was David Bowie giving the finger to the camera. And I said, well, it's not mine. I'm sorry, And then Aaron, who manages all of these things, he researched it a little bit, and then he found that it was at the beginning of a GQ magazine on a contributors page, and it was about an inch high. And this person had found it. Right. And this guy was the head of a consortium that would buy out editions. They would find a shot and say, that's interesting, and they would buy out an edition. So here was a shot that I denied taking. I couldn't remember taking the shot. And then, Aaron said to me, how can you not remember a shot like that? It's so powerful, because it was on a 4x5 piece of film. And it took me forever just to remember how the shot happened. And when he came on the set, it was the end of the day, and I'd done all the pictures, and they needed something for the contributors page, just a little snapshot. And he said, what do you want me to do? I said, you're always so sophisticated and elegant. I said, maybe we should do something that's not so elegant, And of course, he just gave me the finger with a snarl, And I hit the shutter. And I said, well, they'll never run it. And I never even noticed that they had run it. I gave it to them, but I never thought that they ran it. But they did run it, and it was at the beginning. So sometimes you forget the shots you do.
And do you often give everything over, or do you select a handful when you submit? Oh, no, I edit pretty strongly. Yeah.
I've a very solid kind of editing technique. When I'm going through images, I'll put on a screen or on a light box, depending what you're using. I'll find a shot that I think, well, that's pretty good. So then I put that up as the marker shot. In other words, I go through everything else, and it's a straight.
That's your standard.
I think most people maybe edit that way, and that beat that shot.
Yeah.
In other words, find a shot that's better than that, and very often we do.
And then replace that one, and then see if you can beat that one,
and then that becomes the marker. Or sometimes, if there's a slight indecision, and you give two shots 9 out of 10, right. You put them side by side, right. And then, but basically, now I'm editing down usually to 1 or 2 frames. usually 1 or 2 frames. That's all I'm submitting.
It's something I wanted to bring up. You mentioned something at the very end of your talk that struck a chord with me, and you had the photograph of Steve Jobs, which is an iconic picture of him, and you said it's essentially the same photograph of Hitchcock, which is one of the first pictures you took in your career. And you have a graphic design background, and I do too, and I really appreciate that. And something that I've noticed over the years is that I've taken zillions of pictures, but I've only taken maybe 3 or 4 photographs, but because the dynamics and the visual compositions are identical, and it could be one shot of a landscape with a wide angle and another portrait with a longer lens. And if you look at the basic concept and lines, and it's the same picture.
Sure.
That's a visual signature. Was that what you
would
describe it?
I think that the one thing, the Steve Jobs is actually a better picture than the Hitchcock. Because in the end, I was prepared for him when he came, and you may have heard the story of that when he just before when he was arriving, the PR people said to me, just to let you know, Steve hates photographers.
Yes.
And I said, well, I can't do anything about that. I mean, I'm totally prepared. And when he came into the room, he looked around. He scanned the room, which he's known to do, and he gets a sense within 2 seconds whether or not this is together and set up well and planned, and this guy knows what he's doing as a photographer. So when he walked into the room, I was totally prepared. But in that small amount of time, I had thought, how can I make this go better? And I introduced myself, and I said, I have good news for you. I said, I think I can get you out of here in half an hour, not an hour. And he tapped me on both shoulders. He said, wow. He said, that would be just sensational. He said, I'm so busy. And so already I was on a good footing with him. And I felt I would get, just by saying that, so I was taking a chance that I wasn't getting much time. And
I'm surprised you even had a half hour with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that can happen. But usually we insist on an hour, because sometimes an hour just disappears. By the time you say hello to the people, or they take a phone call or something, they can take 2 phone calls, they're still looking for an hour. And so he then said, what do you want me to do? And I had a line prepared for him that I said that what I want you to do is to look at the camera like you're across a table from a bunch of people that disagree with you. But you're right. And he just smiled, and he said, that's easy, I do it every day. Which I'm sure was the truth.
Yeah.
And if you look at that, you'll see that in his eyes there's a certain confidence and
there's
power.
a knowing to it.
He just knows he's right. And so that was the basic idea for the shooting, because there wasn't much time anyway. And he picked up the Polaroid, because I shot it on film. He complained about it being on Polaroid, on film. He said, oh my God, you're shooting film, And he said, why do you not shoot digital yet? And I said, I don't think it's quite there yet. And he pointed at me and said, I agree with you, but he said, we will get there. It is going to conquer the world, sort of thing. Of course, he was right. And he picked up the Polaroid, and he said, wow, this is maybe the best picture ever taken of me. So I thought by this time he was just being nice to me. But sure enough, Apple bought that shot from me and used it when he died as the obituary shot, So he obviously did like it because he put that out. And also he used it on the cover of his book. So I think he enjoyed that moment.
Your work obviously spans styles.
100 years.
100 years. Well,
yeah.
My question has to do with switching gears and the process that enables you to shoot fashion and then reportage. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily the visual eye that will see each of these things, but your headspace. Are you able to switch gears quickly? Are you able to go from, let's say you have a fashion shoot all day and you're on the way to the hotel, and then you see something outside. Is that something that you're able to switch back and forth very quickly? And also, what is the system that allows you to do that? Do you have people that help you? Do you say, okay, this week I'm going to be out shooting on reportage in Africa, next week's fashion?
I would say that, and I mentioned during the talk that I'm a big believer in that if you give up a day to do photography and you abandon everything, you abandon having a nice lunch, you abandon going out to dinner with your wife and go to the movies or the theater or a museum, and you give up everything for that day. Now, you want to make damn sure that you get stuff out of the day. In other words, what do you get out of the day? So I'm at that point really preparing what I want to do. Now, how do I switch gears? I don't have a problem with that. You know, I mean, there was one shot I showed in the video there of a God sign outside of Las Vegas, and it was at the time of 9/11, and they on one of the neon billboards, the video billboards, they had put "God Bless America" on it. And I remember driving back at about 4 p.m. back into Las Vegas because I'd planned a night shooting, and I saw that, you know, vaguely. You know, it was in the daytime, so you didn't really see it. And I just knew that if I went back there at 6:37, that I knew that the sun would coming down and I would be able to split the difference between the sky and the video screen, and the video screen would be as strong as the sky. And I think it's just a matter of, as I said to you, you give up the day, so you better be switched on the whole day. Sometimes my oldest son thought when I was working that I was never having a good time. He said, "You never look like you're enjoying this," and which is actually not true. You know, I love it to pieces, but I consider it a serious business. I'm not hanging out, talking, chatting with people and stuff like that. I'm pretty focused. Because you never get that day back, so why not focus on that day? You know, it's not a relaxed thing. If you want a relaxed day, then take the day off. You know.
And if let's say you have a shoot, like an advertising shoot or a fashion shoot or whatnot, and you saw that shot out in the desert, and
sure.
You're going to stop things, and you're going to say, you know what, I need to get that shot, guys. Let's make that happen.
Of course.
I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, if not, I mark it and then go back to it.
Right.
You know, I was doing a shooting in Cairo for German Vogue, and that was the Christy Turlington shooting. And I remember going to the museum then, and they had in the back, one of the back rooms, they had one of the gloves of Tutankhamun. And I thought, I would love to shoot that as a conceptual thing, because it's not the photograph. Right. Any photographer could do it.
Right, I heard you say that. But not everyone does.
Not everybody did it. So it was like you then get something original from that. Yeah. And you heard me say it took 2.5 years to get permission to get into the museum to photograph that, to photograph that glove and his sock and his personal mirror and things like that, which I found strangely, you know, you're looking back through 3,500 years.
Especially the mirror.
And the mirror of Tutankhamun. I just found these objects, and the only way to shoot them is just lay them down and shoot them. Right. You know, just clean.
Don't try to stylize them.
Well, you don't need to do. You don't need to make a pretty still life. It's just because it's not the photograph; it's the concept, the idea of you doing it. And the same thing. I photographed Elvis Presley's gold lame suit. You just put it on a hanger and shot it, you know. But it's Elvis's gold lame suit, you know.
What you photographed, just about everything I could imagine. What haven't you done that you still want to do? Okay. And what gets you juiced at this point in time?
Yeah, you know, when I pick up a camera, I don't have any problem. I have an instant connection between the camera and adrenaline.
So it's the act of taking pictures.
And so actually just taking a picture, I can disappear. Time disappears. I can do a 15-hour day now, and it feels like 4 hours. I mean, 15 can seem like 4. I've done shootings where the assistants have said, "Is there any chance we can grab something to eat?" And I said, "Why would you grab something to eat? It's only 12:30." They said, "Actually, it's 3:30." So
it's like us on the podcast here.
You know, well, you don't. You just basically you're not aware of.
Yeah. Tell me quickly about the Isle of Skye photos. Is that something that?
Well, it was something I always wanted to do. Yeah. You know, I'm from Scotland. Right. I was born in Edinburgh on the East Coast, but this is a West Coast island. Mm-hmm. And I had been there once before, and it was the most beautiful, kind of slightly mysterious. And so, you know, like a lot of landscape guys, you'll want to go in and to a place that's interesting to shoot. But I wasn't. I was going to try and find something a little bit different there. And as I said to you, I was really driven by Lord of the Rings and to try and see what can I get emotionally into this shot? How can I make the shot dreamlike and so on? And it's quite difficult when you do a presentation like this. You're showing maybe 4 shots from Skye. You know, there were hundreds of shots from Skye, and maybe in the final Selection, I think there was something like 96 shots that I was very happy with, proud of, and that I thought were special. And as I said, there was that side issue where I photographed textural pieces in sky that I always had meant to incorporate as double exposures with nudes, and how to blend landscape and nudes together in one image. And not just to do a double exposure, but to really use the computer to blend things and to make certain aspects of the landscape come through, certain aspects of the nude to come through, and so on. That's why I love the computer.
When's the last time you were in a darkroom?
3 months ago.
Okay.
2 months ago.
All right.
It's like riding a bike. Once you...
Oh, yes.
all you need is one piece of paper and you make a correction,
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that you got to print your own work, That's... You got to do your own work, because and I speak with photographers all the time. They say, I have a very good printer in LA. I say, well, what do you mean? You send them out from New York to LA, and then what happens? He sends me back a print that I quite like. And to me, that's something strange to me.
Interesting.
That you go into a darkroom early in the morning, and maybe you're not warmed up, and you maybe think that the exposure is 50 seconds, and you give it 50 seconds. Maybe you forget to close down, and you put it into the developer, and the image is dark, but you know enough to develop it fully.
Right.
Let it go the full 3.5, 4 minutes, and then put on the light and have a look at it. And I've discovered amazing things on overexposed prints that are too heavy, too dark, because there can be aspects of it that are pure magic.
Yeah.
Now, if you send it out to LA, that guy's
You're
never
never
going to
gonna
do
see
that. If he makes that mistake, he's going to throw it out. And he's going to give you a nicely balanced, well-adjusted print. Whereas when you're doing it yourself, there's just wonderful things that you can discover. And
only you know that image, because you took it.
I take the image, it's not what I'm looking for, and sometimes it's too heavy, sometimes you don't give it enough, sometimes you learn from every piece of paper, that's the great thing. You can do test strips, it's a magical thing. You think about it, it's black magic, you put a piece of white paper in a chemical and an image comes up. It's a wonderful thing, it's wonderful.
Absolutely.
I have a telephone that takes pictures. Would you believe that?
Yeah, I know. I'm very positive because I think the iPhone makes amateurs better photographers.
Oh, it does, yes.
But it doesn't make them great photographers.
No. Having learned in the darkroom, I know what you're saying.
I'm still understanding the world of Instagram. I mean, I've only had an Instagram for about 3 months now, and I don't quite understand that a picture of a giraffe with a leaf in its mouth gets 1.5 million hits. And I might show a really good shot of Beyonce, and we might get 3,000 hits, So I'm always slightly puzzled by...
Well, the most popular picture about 2 or 3 weeks ago was a picture of an egg.
Yes.
Just an egg. So go figure.
Yeah. So that sounds more conceptual than a picture of a giraffe.
Cool.
Anyway, Sir Albert Watson, pleasure having you here today. It's an absolute treat. The first time we've ever had an interview with an audience here. Thank you for joining us here. You behaved beautifully. Thank you. For those of our listeners who are not familiar with your work, where can they see your work?
Just dial my name in. There's 5 million things there.
It's easy.
Dial the name in. Look at the Instagram. I think it's managed by Aaron, and he does a great job managing it. He's passing it by me sometimes not, but he's always trying to make the Instagram post make sense. He posted a shot today because it's the Chinese New Year, so he posted a shot of mine from the 70s from China.
Right.
So he's always trying to connect it to something, somebody's birthday. If it's Clint Eastwood's birthday, then he posts a picture of Clint Eastwood, something like that. So,
all right. Thank you so much, sir. Pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks to B&H.
Great show. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir.
If you enjoyed the chat we just had with Sir Albert Watson, I know we sure did, tune in over the next couple of weeks as we're going to be having more interviews with more photographers who appeared at the 2019 Depth of Field Wedding, Portrait, and Event Photography Conference right here in New York City. Some of the photographers we spoke with include Tamaya Colvin, Susan Stripling, Charmy Pena, and Tony Gale. Stay tuned because we do have more interviews coming in. In the meantime, if you are not a subscriber to the B&H Photography Podcast, what you waiting for? Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, and Spotify. You can always find us on the B&H Explorer website and coming soon, the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group page. Remember, it is all free, and tell them Al sent you. For now, on behalf of Jason, John, and myself, thank you so much for tuning in today.